Tsukatsuki Rio. Not a lot of people like her during her debut because, well, she did try to kill Alice. But now, she turned from one of the most hated characters to one of the most anticipated and beloved in the game. Especially by the mommy enjoyers. Now, for my thoughts of Rio. Pat, plap, or pass? You know, I've been thinking about this question for a while now. Pat, plap, or pass? Then I said to myself, bruh, who am I kidding? You see that? You can fit 3 kids inside those hips. Then I had an idea. You know, we keep saying what we want to do to our students when we pull for them or we get them, but we never thought about what happens next. Like, do we just eject and evacuate? Do you know what I'm saying? You know, that's very unresponsible of you, Sensei. Which is why I had this idea. Like, what if, instead of just plapping the student until her ovaries explode, what if we think realistically, right? A life where we actually start a family with our students. Which is why, now, I present to you, my fellow Blue Archive senseis, this video, or maybe this series in the future if I feel a little bit enthusiastic, how to be a good husband, the Tsukatsuki Rio edition. Post-production Coach Z Sensei here. When I was editing this video, the new episodes of Chapter EX just arrived and I am already in the video editing process. So unfortunately, I have not included the new episodes in this video. So to start, who is Tsukatsuki Rio? President of Seminar, the Student Council of Millennium. Her desires for peace in Millennium and the world drive her to do whatever she thinks is necessary. As a result, she became known as everyone's big sister. Her stylistic and aesthetic tastes are quite unique. Her avant-garde robot core, which is known only to a few students, exemplifies those tastes. Although Rio did underwent into a lot of character change and development after the events of Chapter F, there are still characteristics that remained even now that she is playable. So, to be a good husband for Rio, let's analyze these characteristics. To start, we'll divide these characteristics into 2 groups, the negatives and the positives. Let's start with the negatives. Now, when I say negatives, I don't mean to mock Rio for her having these traits, right? We all have negative traits. Even what everyone perceived as perfect, there will always be negative traits. That's what makes us human in the first place, right? And in this case, it is our job as her husband to, if not completely remove, to suppress these negative traits and help her improve as a better person. Number 1. The first one is not really a negative trait, but more of the biggest problem that needs to be solved, that is going to help solve a lot of her negative traits. She should come back to Seminar and face not just Yuka, but the rest of Seminar and just talk to them and just reconcile with them. Yes, everyone, even La Pretura. Remember, Rio did use her as a smokescreen to embezzle funds to make the fortress city Eridu. This, for me, is the biggest problem that she needs to face and solve. Because yes, redemption arcs is very nice for Rio, for her to develop as a character and, well, just have a good story overall, but this is fundamentally the biggest problem that she is having right now. The guilt of what she has done, not just to her clubmates, but to the entire school as a whole. So that is why That is the biggest problem that she needs to face right now. Number 2, and the start of the negative traits, Rio tends to overthink. This is an expected trait for Rio because she is the student council president of Millennium. Like, you need to take every possible threat to your school seriously. It's just that Rio takes her overthinkingness to an extreme level, to the point of nearly bankrupting Millennium in order to build an entire fortress city, which backfired spectacularly and was never even used for its intended role in Chapter F. Although overthinking may have its advantages, like creating a bigger picture of the problem and having like more ways to solve it, overthinking that actually costs too much resources, too much time, to the point of nearly bankrupting your school. Yeah, that definitely is an important negative trait that needs to be pointed out. So, how do we suppress this negative trait? For me, it's to remind her that the more you try to take control of like the future, the more unpredictable it becomes. The future is notoriously unpredictable, you know. Rio creates the Fortress City Eridu to protect Kivotos, gets hacked by Ki. Bruh. Just prioritize on basically just making Millennium a less chaotic and more organized school, which comes back to the number one problem: just reconcile with the rest of Seminar and, well, basically just take over what Yuka is doing, and that is preventing the school from collapsing under its own shenanigans. I mean, Rio's supposed to be the student council president, right? Number 3. Rio tends to do things alone and does not ask for help. Again, another trait to be expected from a student council president. Again, Rio takes it to the extreme levels. And even more again, fixing the first problem is definitely going to help in fixing this negative trait. Like, think about it. If Rio just told the rest of Seminar what Alice truly is, will Eridu be built? Because Rio may know Alice as the princess of the nameless gods, but the rest of Seminar knows that Alice is practically harmless. Well, unless she starts getting a little trigger happy with her railgun. But jokes aside, Alice has now developed this sense of morality and now has her own views of what is good and what is bad, and Rio didn't know this. And this was also proven during the ending of Volume 2 Chapter 2, where despite Alice knowing that she is the princess of the nameless gods, she decides to use her power to basically just be a hero and protect her friends. If Rio just talked to Seminar and asked who Alice is, Volume 2 Chapter 2 would have went actually completely differently. And an even more better idea if Rio just went directly to the game development department and gather information directly from them. Ask them what is this student doing? Is she telling you that she's going to destroy the world, or is she doing something else? Yeah, if that is what Rio did instead of overthinking, then things would have ended completely differently. And just ask for their help in entrusting them to guide Alice to the right path. This negative trait could be solved simply by Rio just asking for help, not just Seminar but to anyone actually, even Himari. Probably except the engineering department. They probably gonna upgrade Alice with camouflage underwear, and that's probably gonna traumatize Rio. Number 4. Ends justify the means. You know, in the making of this part of the script, I realized how serious this part actually is. To the point where if I do say what I written originally in the script, it would turn this into a very depressing video. So I'll try to make it as lighthearted as possible. So Rio tried to kill Alice, right? If she succeeded, she basically just doomed Kivotos. Remember, in chapter F, the throne of Atrahasis has that barrier around it called the superposition barrier. And the only way that it was breached was due to Ki's sacrifice, right? Allowing the ship of Utnapishtim, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, to ram the Atrahasis, throne of Atrahasis, I guess. So if Rio did actually succeed in destroying Alice's halo, Rio basically just doomed Kivotos. So how do we fix this negative trait of Rio that she's a ends justify the means type of person? Well, we just remind Rio of this event. The reason why we broke through the superposition barrier was the superposition barrier, or whatever it's called, is due to Ki's sacrifice. Well, and Ki is residing inside Alice, so if you kill Alice, you kill both Ki and Alice. Ends justify the means may be a good thing, but sometimes the consequences can be more than you could ever take responsibility for. And last but definitely not the least, in fact, it's the most important negative trait that we, as her husband, must help her overcome with. It's the fact that this girl doesn't know how to cook. Leader of an entire country? No, group, huge group. That's very, very important. Was considered a enemy at the first, then becomes playable and doesn't know how to cook? Where have I heard this before? Why is this important? Why? Bro, we in the middle of that crossroad meme, right? She either becomes like Fuka or Juri. Let her cook or don't let her cook. But at the same time, this also boils down if Sensei, as well us as her husband, knows how to cook. So yeah, canonically, Sensei is not a good cook, and Fuka and Rumi can definitely testify to this. So how do we fix this negative trait? I mean, me personally, like, if I were to self-insert here, I mean, I do know how to cook, but Sensei verse, canon Sensei wise, yeah, I think it would be best to ask help from Fuka and Rumi. So that would be cool, right? You wake up one day and then turns out Rio is the one doing the cooking today. And you went to the dining table, and then Rio just cooks you an entire frigging buffet. Oh hell yeah, that's the best wife we can get right there. Well, now that we got the negative traits out of the way, or at least the negative traits that I know, it's time for us to move to the positive traits. This time, these are traits that we need to commend her for and, well, promote, I guess. So, first and foremost, number 1. Rio is very protective. Well, as you can see in the current event where Rio went to the Arctic region, she wanted to protect not just Millennium but the entirety of Kivotos from the actual threat that is Decagrammaton. She may be alone at first in this endeavor, but based on the reaction that the Dekagakis had when Rio entered the scene to help the Super Phenomenon Task Force, yeah, I do think that despite Rio being there alone, her like planning and the what do you call the AMAS? Yeah, her alone actually gave Decagrammaton quite a bit of headache. So if Rio becomes your wife and someone threatens the security of your home, your children. Number 2. Rio actually looks at you as an important person. I mean, it's there in her Momo talk, and I do know that despite Rio being a very, very eccentric character, I genuinely vouch that her saying this part in her Momo talk, I actually think this is very genuine. Because one, a lot of people do find Rio to be very distasteful. Well, you can see Himari saying it. There's also Neru in the event where she just punches the hell out of Rio. And well, there's also Yuka, which I mean, Yuka doesn't hate Rio personally, I guess. Yuka hates Rio because of the embezzlements. And well, with good reason, I should ask, that, well, I discussed about earlier about her negative traits. But so far, Sensei was the first person to actually give her a second chance. And Rio took this into heart. As cold, as calculating as she is, she definitely is striving to be a better person. And she looks at Sensei, well, us, not just as a guide, but as a person she can actually lean on to. And with that, I am very, very confident that smile that Rio did in her Momo talks, that's not a normal smile. Like, you compare it to like Asuna's smile, Kirara's smile, or even Alice's smile. That smile that Rio did, she only does this to us. Well, not only just us, but to, like, she also did it once to Alice. But that's not because, well, she just finds happiness, I guess. That's because that's not a smile of joy. That is a smile of complete trust. I'm very sure that Rio does not show or give this easily. Not to Himari, not even to her own clubmates. As far as I can remember, yeah, Alice was basically the only other person other than Sensei that she gave this smile to. Of course, I could be wrong. Like, my memory ain't no good, you know. I have the memory of a goldfish, you know. But bottom line is the fact that Rio smiled to us like this, or even this? Yeah, that is the smile of complete trust towards us. And last but definitely not the very least, Rio is a responsible person. Even though Rio's responsibleness, is that a word, is not perfect, I mean, it's 100 times better than this numbskull right here. Like, at least Rio is making it her responsibility to protect her school from actual threats. Like the big sister protecting her little sister from bullies at school, while the actual mother is scolding the father for spending money on figurines. Gomen Yuka. And this also plays along with her title as the big sister of Millennium. Because yes, she's responsible and protective, but she still has much to learn. She's not, for lack of a better word, she's not yet ready to be the mother of Millennium yet. That title rightfully belongs to Yuka because Yuka manages everything, making sure nobody goes overboard with anything and basically disciplines everyone who gets out of line, hell, even CNC. So Rio's title as Big Sister definitely defines her like responsible nature. Like, it is responsibility of a big sister to protect her quote-unquote younger sisters, which comes in the form of all the other students in Millennium. And just like a teenage big sister, still has a lot to learn before she becomes a mother. Turning Rio into a mother? That can be arranged. So to summarize everything, how do you become a good husband to Rio? 1. Make her talk to more people, not just us, her husband. Make her go outside, make her touch grass, make her meet new people. Number 2. Remind her that she is not alone. She has friends. Well, if Himari calls her a friend, and clubmates to help her in her troubles and overthinkingness. Number 3. Reminding her that the consequences of ends justifying the means can be far more greater than one could ever take responsibility for. Number 4. Helping her in her cooking. I mean, it's difficult at first, don't get me wrong, but it's a learning process. Just prevent her from adding weird ingredients, I guess. And that's pretty much it. If you take care of Rio, Rio will take care of you too. She already looks at you as a important person. Treat her well. Make her happy. Give her a child. Make it 10. And that is how to be a good husband to Tsukatsuki Rio. Since this is my first time doing this type of video, and I was born with the same IQ as a sentient vibrator, I am bound to get things wrong and miss something. So if you think I missed something or got something wrong, do type it in the comments. Or share it with your fellow Blue Archive senseis. If you wish for them to be good husbands to Rio as well. So yeah, I guess I'll see you all, my fellow Blue Archive senseis, in the next video. So yeah, peace.